Okay, we have a quorum
Yes, we have a quorum.
and we did post city Torrance clerk
Yes,
I'm actually not a board member.
announcements of any changes.
I did.
there are no changes to the agenda.
Okay.
Complaints.
Okay, I have three public speakers tonight, so we're gonna start with Ray Holler.
They're speaking on the.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, you guys are on my fault. My bad.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Chair, Brandy, they came together. Hand up on this.
Sharing. 5B. 5B? 18B.
Right. We do have one hand up on the.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, Randy.
Hello, and thank you. I just had to, hello, how is it? I just have one quick announcement from our agency, South Coast AQMD, for anybody who doesn't know me. This is regarding Rule 2306, the freight rail yard. Some of you may already know, but earlier this month, the South Coast AQMD Governing Board adopted Rule 2306, freight rail yards. Rule 2306 is part of the suite of facility-based mobile source measures included in the 2016 and 2022 air quality management plans, aimed at collectively addressing emissions related to goods movement and to assist in meeting state and federal ambient air quality standards for ozone and PM 2.5. This will improve public health, especially for communities located near freight hubs, including freight rail yards. The rule establishes emissions reduction targets to ensure that NOx reductions from freight rail yards within the South Coast AQMD jurisdiction will be achieved at levels that are proportional or more than proportional to the reductions throughout California from implementation of state regulations affecting rail yard emission sources. Rule 2306 further requires facility reporting on zero emission infrastructure and for non-federal public agencies to include compliance requirements in contracting with a freight rail yard owner or operator. Freight rail yards that are owned and operated by the, sorry, I have a cat jumping on my lap.
That's okay.
She needs to be a part of this. Freight rail yards that are owned or operated by the ports of Long Beach or Los Angeles are exempt from complying with the rule, including all intermodal on-dock rail facilities at the two ports, as well as non-intermodal rail facilities whose operations are limited to moving rail cars to and or from marine terminals for the purpose of on-port switching.
Brandy, just to let you know, we're not sure if your cat stepped on something, but you're coming in a little bit broken.
Sitting on your router.
And I think you're frozen right now. Yeah, you might have to reboot yourself.
That's not good.
Okay. Her hand went down, so I think maybe she's trying to get restarted. We got you back.
Sorry about that. I'm not sure where it cut off, but for more information, check our website at aqmd.gov or follow us on social media, or of course, I'm here to answer any questions if you have them.
Thanks. We appreciate you. Let's see, consent calendar.
I move approval.
We have a motion and a second. All yours.
Oh, I wanted to say one thing. The cities of Gardena and Redondo Beach have paid their dues. The only outstanding dues is the city of Los Angeles.
Sorry, we are slow but certain. I am on the budget
Checks it
committee.
down.
Yeah, I'm on the budget committee. I saw that line item.
Good, thank you so much. Okay.
We take cash.
That he will.
And Mo?
Work for food.
Thank you.
Okay,
Val.
David, go ahead.
Any opposition? And any abstention?
Okay, let's go on to presentations.
Mr. Chair, you're in
Yes.
the past public comment.
Yeah, we did.
Sorry, can I
You
make
want
a
to put
public
something
comment?
in there?
Yeah, could I please?
Go ahead.
All right. Good evening, board. I'm Vano Baji from Redondo Beach. What I just distributed to you is in opposition to our Measure FP in Redondo Beach. The city of council in Redondo Beach unanimously decided to put a $93.5 million infrastructure bond on the November ballot. And it's because we have tons of infrastructure, about $300 million structure that's aged, decrepit, we're not getting state funding for, that we need to repair, rebuild for future generations of Redondoans. We ultimately whittled it down after taking in public sentiment. We whittled it down after 5 hearings to 4 buildings, 2 firehouses, 1 police department that's tiny, and its police department annex. And we chose a number of $93.5 million. And our police officers, our firefighters behind this, city council is unanimously behind it. And we wrote a statement in support of it. Then came Mayor John Cruikshank of Rancho Palos Verdes and put in an opposition statement in which he took statements made by our city manager and our public works director during the lead ups, during the initial planning stages, took them out of context and is assaulting what we have asked our residents for their own benefit. And taking out of context statements that were made in the lead up to this process. I it caught my attention today. I learned of it. I'm disgusted by it. I think it says a lot when there are infrastructure issues in Rancho Palos Verdes that need addressing to come down and poop on our infrastructure needs in Redondo Beach. I don't appreciate it at all, Mayor Cruikshank.
All right, that's your opinion.
Okay, let's move on.
Do we know what's going on?
Prepared to talk about it. I'm actually a board member of a group called the LA Taxpayers, and they wanted me to present this as an argument against it. And so I did that as my right as a citizen.
And I just
So you
exercised.
can discuss it all you want in front of this group, but I don't think that's appropriate, honestly.
And we're gonna move on with that. Okay, so we have a presentation tonight, and it's my pleasure to welcome Water Replenishment District Director Rob Catherman. He's an environmental engineer, urban planner, small business owner, and he has served as an elected director for the past 19 years and is a former Torrance Water Commissioner. Last year, Rob was selected by the Urban Water Institute to serve on their board of directors. He also serves on the LA Harbor College Foundation Board. He's got 2 pages of acclamations of what, I probably won't read them all. We'll just let him talk about himself. How's
I hope I didn't.
that?
But I do have 3 daughters and 10 grandchildren. And been married to my wife for 45 years. That's the best part of the resume. So thank you.
Thank you.
It's really nice to be here this evening. Jackie invited me to talk, and so I'm really glad to have the privilege. Do I need to stand behind the podium here?
No.
Wherever you want to go.
Or can you, it's a small room, so I assume that you all can hear me.
Yeah, you're good.
Okay, so let's get on with it. I have good news today. Our groundwater levels are the best they've been since the 1940s as a result of rainfall for the last couple of years. And the County of Los Angeles deserves kudos. They have captured more record amounts of stormwater for the last couple of years. So when people or the news says, oh, we're not catching any stormwater, that's BS. Our levels now are up to the point where we are 40,000 acre feet out of 600,000 acre feet above our goal, which we set about 18 years ago based on one of the largest rain years on record, which is 2014 or 2005 fiscal year. So our groundwater is in great shape. Now let's go back and talk about why we were created. Who is West Basin Municipal Water District? What are our judgments? And how do we get barriers? So overpumping in the South Bay, starting in 1900s and beginning of the 20th century, Our South Bay source of groundwater really comes from the Santa Monica and San Gabriel Mountains. And it is stormwater that percolates into the four bays, Los Angeles forebay and the Montebello forebays. Montebello forebay is where you have the San Gabriel and the Rio Hondo rivers, Los Angeles forebay with the Los Angeles River. And that, of course, is why Los Angeles started where it started rather than in Santa Monica or Redondo Beach. So by the 1940s, the seawater intrusion was significant. After World War II, the groundskeeper at Redondo Union High School, getting the football fields ready for football season. And the more that he watered the grass, ball field, the more yellow and brown the grass became. They tested the water and sure enough, it was salty. So that began the effort to create an entity that could buy imported water to supplement our groundwater. So that was West Basin Metropolitan Water District passed a resolution to tax them their properties by over 15%, if you can imagine, to join Metropolitan to bring in imported water. In addition, the local government representatives filed a judgment in the court to limit the amount of pumping, limited to 280,000 acre feet. And this is in the West Basin, it limited to 65,000 acre feet in the West Basin, 280 feet in both basins subsequently. But for us here in the South Bay, that was the significant number. You had to stop over pumping in the area. Next, the County of Los Angeles with state funding started building seawater barriers. And then lastly, we were created in 1959 to assess pumping based on the amount of pumping rather than your property tax bill, which is based on your property tax. So if you used a lot of water, you benefited. If you used a little water, you paid more than your fair share. So we were created in 1959 to manage the groundwater basins and provide a financial mechanism by which you could buy replenishment water. So you think of our groundwater basins, again, because of development, the surface has become impermeable, basically. So we just have our areas in the forebay, Los Angeles forebay, and which doesn't have much surface area available because the Corps of Engineers in the 1930s built the LA River and channelized it with concrete. And then, so what we really got now is the San Gabriel and Rio Hondo's rivers. There's about 1,000 acres of county-owned spreading grounds. Used to be a flood control facility. And a spreading ground is simply sand and gravel that sits the surface of, and that sand and gravel has permeability because the spaces between the particles. And if you put water in that spreading grounds, in about 70 years, you can drink it here in the South Bay. So that's the source of our water naturally in the West Basin. We were created and we supplement what Mother Nature can no longer provide. So our deal with Mother Nature is you provide half and we'll provide the other half. So some years recently, she hasn't been doing such a good job. But last 2 years, she did a great job. So we're forgiving her. All right. We're a special district, 420 square miles, 14 cities, 4 million people in our service area. We're divided into 5 political divisions. I'm Division 2 here in the South Bay, basically from Westchester down through San Pedro. And our job is to provide replenishment water and to monitor the groundwater quality for contaminants. So the way we get water into our groundwater is, again, the spreading grounds, which are up in the northeasterly part here in the blue, 1,000 acres up there, and then we have 3 barrier systems, the West Coast barrier, which protects seawater intrusion for us here. We've got the Dominguez Gap barrier north of the 2 ports from the Harbor Freeway to the Long Beach Freeway. And then we have the Alamitos barrier, which is on the boundary of Long Beach and Orange County, and it runs from Long Beach over to and including westerly parts of Orange County. So climate change, we're all familiar with it. What has it done to us in our groundwater basin? So our water supply, rainfall wise, has decreased by about 30% over the last 50 or 60 years. So, and of course, we had the worst drought in 1,000 years, the last few years. The solution, first of all, we can all conserve water. And I want to commend all of you and all of your constituents because we've done one hell of a job of conserving water. Metropolitan Water District, when I started 20 years ago, was selling almost 2 million acre feet of water in its service area for 19 million people. Today, they are selling barely 1 million acre feet. They budgeted to sell next year 1.1 million acre feet. And if any of you want to go to Vegas and bet on the odds of them getting 1 million feet sold next year, good luck to you. So long term, we've got to reclaim and use more recycled water. If you looked at the slide before, you saw every one of those 4 actions that were taken back in the 50s, everything took a decade. And that's the way with any project. And John, you certainly know how long it takes to build a project. Our water districts are now working together. We're planning on partnering with West Basin, sneak by. West Basin Water District, Metropolitan Water District, and Los Angeles, City of Los Angeles Department of Water and Power. Use the Hyperion treatment plant water once they fix it and expand it. Tim can tell you more about that.
Just assume not.
And also, Metropolitan Water District is partnering with Los Angeles County Sanitation District, not LA Sanitation District. And they are going to do a membrane cleanup technology called membrane bioreactors on the project, which is the most efficient way to treat and be able to recycle wastewater. But those projects cost a lot of money and take a lot of time. So thank goodness we have continued to conserve water, and we need to continue to do so in spite of the fact we have record levels of groundwater. Our reservoirs are at record levels. Remember, our reservoirs are also flood control facilities. So you can't just leave them full preparation for winter. You've got to drain them in anticipation of winter storms and spring runoff. So now let's look at why is this occurring? Okay, so we have climate change, which is reducing the quantity of water that they're receiving in storms. And you can see by the blue are those above normal or average for Sacramento here in California, and for Lake Powell, which is Lake Powell is the furthest north reservoir on the Colorado River. And the Colorado River actually has done a little better in terms of stormwater than we have here in California. But the problem is climate change has heated the land and has heated the air. So you have more evaporation. And here it shows for the Colorado River Basin, and this is during the drought of 2021, you get 88% of normal snowpack, but you're only getting 30% of normal runoff into the Colorado River. Here in the Sacramento Delta, 72% normal snowpack, 38% go into Sacramento and San Joaquin rivers. So even when we're getting a normal amount of rainfall. We're not getting the same amount of runoff going into our reservoirs. What WRD does is, of course, our replenishment. We monitor the quality of all of our groundwater in the service area. We've got 300 monitoring wells that are what we call nested. They have plastic perforated pipes that go down to each of the three or four levels of aquifer in that particular area. So we monitor the water quality and the water levels in each one of those separate pipes. And then we test for almost 200 chemicals now, including PFOS and PFOA, which is a forever chemical you've no doubt read about. We're also the water master, so we send out bills to the pumpers, make sure they're not over pumping. And we are doing basin remodeling and modeling of our aquifers and the water levels. And we're going to start using AI technology now to track what's going on in our groundwater basin. So we're extremely excited about the new technology, one of the good uses of AI. So we built over the last 20 years, 3 plants, the Robus Center plant in Peak Rivera off the San Gabriel River, where we're cleaning up about 12 million gallons a day of tertiary treated water from the San Jose treatment plant. We've built and expanded the Vanderlands plant in Long Beach next to the Los Alamitos barrier by the Orange County border. We're producing about 8 million gallons a day from that plant that satisfies the needs of that barrier. And then the Goldsworthy plant was originally built in 2004, before I got on the board, but we've expanded it since in 2017. It produces now about 4 million gallons a day. We're going to double or perhaps triple that capacity with our new project, which I'll get to in a minute. So our efforts, we started when I came on board in 2020. We had this WIN program, Water Independence Now. We called it Water Independence Network. I said, climate change is coming upon us, has hit us, it's going to get worse, and it's going to get worse quickly. So we got some really bright kids from USC, came down and talked to us about, what do you think we should be calling this? And they came up with the idea of, let's call it Water Independence Now, being independent of imported water from both Colorado River and the Sacramento Delta. So we worked hard with our partners, City of Los Angeles, the Terminal Island Treatment Plant, West Basin Municipal Water District, and their expansions of their Eddsea Little plant in El Segundo, and our own plants that we built. So now we are 100% recycled water. So we are now drought proof for half of our water supply. So if we get a normal amount of rainfall here in our service area, then we're good. We will not need any imported water. But I can't tell you that's going to happen on a regular basis. So 4 years ago, as we had just completed the Pico Rivera plant, we adopted a regional plan, which was to, we call it Win for All, which was to work on the other half of the water supply that's imported water right now. And that plan was a result of groundwater storage amendment. Remember, I said we had the judgments back in the 50s and, well, actually the 60s by the time they were decided, that limited the amount of pumping, but it didn't take into account storage. So the over pumping of our aquifers has created some good news, and that is there's storage space in the aquifer above the levels that we manage the basin at. That extra storage space amounts to, between the two basins, about 450,000 acre feet of water. That's enough water to completely provide our service area for a year, not including any of the groundwater that we what we call below the line, which is our required level. Or our goal, I shouldn't say required, our goal level in our basin. So using stormwater, additional stormwater capture and reclaimed water, we're hoping to fill that unused space in our aquifers and to get water from Northern California in wet years and put it into the aquifer space and storage. The storage amendments, which took us 10 years, will enable us to do that now. The two judgments did not include that. And we had, when I started, we had knockdown, drag out shouting matches with our pumpers, particularly in the Central Basin, that didn't want to give up what they viewed as their ownership of the storage space. They finally went to court, and the court said, no, the groundwater aquifer space and the water in the ground is public benefit, not a private ownership. Okay. Once that was decided, we were able to sit down at the table. We brought in a negotiator that the State Water Board had recommended, very capable guy and gal, and they sat down with the pumpers, they sat down with the city councils and worked out agreements for both basins, Western and Central. And so now we can utilize that 450,000 acre foot storage space in our aquifer to store water, either by using reclaimed water or excess imported water in wet years. So that is the good news. That is how we're going to get to complete independence of imported water in our basins. This plan that we're looking at will take us 20 years to 2040. So here locally, as I mentioned, we want to expand the Goldsworthy plant, where we're treating salty water. It's not as salty as ocean water. Water in our, let's see the little map here of our basin. These water levels are in our main Silverado aquifer. There's about 200,000 acre feet of brackish water from 500 to 7,000 parts per million. By comparison, ocean water is 30 to 35,000 parts per million. So it's salty, but not nearly as salty as ocean water. This is much easier to treat, much cheaper to treat than it would be to build an ocean desal plant. And that's one of the reasons West Basin decided that they weren't going to go ahead with the ocean treatment plant right now, because we have another way of doing it, cleaning up our wastewater and creating space in our aquifer, clean space without salty water, to provide storage space and to enable us to pump up to our adjudicated water levels. Each basin right now is pumping between 30 and 35,000 acre feet less than the judgment would allow. So that's 70,000 acre feet of water. That's about what West Basin is going to be selling, which we are for imported water by comparison. Here's a picture of the inside of the Goldsworthy plant. It's a typical reverse osmosis microfiltration plant. Groundwater cleanup, part of that, of course, is the expansion to the Goldsworthy plant, but it's also in the Central Basin cleaning up PFAS, which is all over the north part of the basin. EPA just came up with a new standard. It's 4 parts per trillion. When I was in engineering school way back, the slide rules, believe it or not, okay, I still have my slide rule in a box in my office and my grandkids love to get and play with it. Anyway, there was parts per million back in those days. Then a decade ago, it was parts per billion. Now it's parts per trillion. So the standard that the EPA came up with was not debating, but simply saying we wouldn't know that there was any contamination at that level 10 years ago. And in fact, there was contamination 10 years ago. Because here's the wells that we've tested that show up in the, again, our San Gabriel and Rio Hondo rivers, where that water has come in from San Gabriel and from runoff. And that has contaminated the groundwater because up there, that's all permeable sand and gravel at the surface. So we have set aside $60 million to treat that. And we're hoping to get some additional funds from the US Bureau of Reclamation over the course of the next couple of years. But we've got 4 years before we have the cities and pumpers have to meet that standard. And so we're working with them now to come up with financing methods for them to do that. Much of that area that has contaminated PFAS has disadvantaged communities. We've got 1 million of our 4 million people would be considered disadvantaged economically. And so increasing a water bill $10, $20 a month is a significant hit to them. The last slide was, go back, shows the nested well concept where the plastic pipes go down to the various levels down below. And our staff is out there doing the hard work while the politicians on the board are running their mouths. But someone has to do the work.
May I ask, how deep are those wells?
Those wells are, some of them as shallow as 100 feet. The deepest is probably 300, like that. So they're very shallow. Here in the West Coast Basin, wells are 700 to 900 feet. Now, where the main drinking water aquifer is located. There is also surface water aquifer that is generally contaminated by man-made from gasoline cleaners, dry cleaners. So a lot of volatile organic compounds. We don't use the upper level. And the benefit that we have that San Gabriel Valley and San Fernando Valley don't have, they're sandboxes. They don't have clay layers in there, simply sand and gravel that is washed off the mountains over the past 10 million years, give or take. Here we have, because of uplift in the Los Angeles Basin, we've had series of seawater levels where you have clay deposited and then sand and gravel on top of that, clay deposit, sand and gravel on top of that over the last 50 million years. So price, for a penny, you can buy 8 gallons of groundwater, pumped groundwater. You can buy 2 gallons of imported water. So groundwater is the cheapest source of drinking water. And that's why we're pushing to expand groundwater sales.
I'll take $1 worth.
Okay, there you go. All right. So thank you. And I'll happy to take questions if you have any.
Questions? Go ahead.
Does that brackish water, the slightly salted water, does that get refilled with slightly salted water, or will it eventually empty out?
Salt out, then you have to take it out. We have a series of wells that will pull the water out. So in the what we call the hot spots with the highest concentration of salt, So it will be backfilled with fresh water from the seawater barrier.
Okay.
And, oh, I'm sorry, and future injection wells from Hyperion.
And I just say that I took 2 of the 3 classes of the Groundwater Academy, and I recommend it for anybody here. You get one of those emails from WRD, do take it. It's mind blowing. They take you to 3 different facilities.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions?
Yeah, I got a quick question. Appreciate the presentation today. Lomita and some of my adjacent cities, the LA County Regional Water Quality Control Board would suggest we're maybe contributing to contaminants in Machado Lake. And I guess I'm asking that question because I think about it from the, whether it's the Win for All or whatever, is there any opportunity from a project perspective or whatnot to assess that and potentially do something?
Absolutely, yes. His ability just takes money,
Everything takes money, right?
right? Yeah. The problem with stormwater is it's not a point source, it's a distributed source. Right? So how do you clean up all that? So you're gonna have to put, if you're gonna clean up Machado Lake, you gotta put something right by the lake for all the point sources around the lake. We fortunately don't deal with surface water, we only deal with groundwater. So I'll refer you to the West Basin.
No, I appreciate that. It's just, again, it's something we're dealing with, right?
That's an engineer's answer to your question.
Okay, I appreciate
It's,
that.
it's darn difficult.
Thank you.
And I was gonna say, that the biggest source of water pollution, surface water pollution now is our tires. Because of the microplastics that come off of our tires and all the chemicals that are in the microplastics. And, oh, by the way, when I come back to talk to you, hopefully in 4 more years, if I get reelected, we will be talking about drinking water that has harmful levels of microplastics. That's the next contaminant we're going to be dealing with. Unfortunately,
Good.
it is pervasive. Every single person in the country has microplastics in their bloodstream.
Makes us strong. Yeah, I have a question. So you show that where you're showing the mapping of the below the surface. How detailed the mapping and how does WRD go about mapping below the surface?
We have the monitoring wells and we use the data from our.
So the same as what we're doing.
Yeah.
Every time you do a well, you,
Yes, you log it.
okay, so nothing different than what we're doing.
No, other than, again, we're doing it at discrete levels. When you build a regular well, you just build one well and you screen it to where the aquifer is. So they may have 2 or 3 levels of aquifer on that well, and you would put open screens in that area so the water can be sucked in. So once you pulled it up from 2 or 3 areas, you don't know which level aquifer the contamination comes from. So, and we also, of course, test for water levels. So we have multiple models for the water levels, multiple models for contaminants, and we monitor the migration of the contaminants based on pumping in the surrounding area and water levels. So that's where it becomes an AI exercise to track how those myriad of things interact with one another.
But do you think this AI software, is that new?
Yes,
And is that something you think would help with what's going on in our city?
could, yes,
Okay. We'll talk offline.
yeah, but
All right.
I think it could. But you need a source of data to begin with. And remember, the water that you're talking about is perched water.
Right.
Right, so it's independent of external sources, basically. So that makes it, tough, I think, tougher to predict, but certainly AI, I think, could help.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
Any other questions?
And just a quick question, well,
I don't know if you remember, we sat for a couple hours talking over lunch about water. I've always been very impressed. Offsite, correct. I've always been impressed with how much you know about water, of course, here in the field, but I guess my question would be the water that we're putting into the wells, acting as a barrier to saltwater intrusion, at least in Torrance, which I think we have now 7 wells that were, 7 wells pumping up and a few pumping down.
Yeah, I don't know how many active wells you've got, to be honest, but yeah.
But the ones that we're using as a barrier, is that the same water that we're putting in our purple pipe systems, or is it?
You can't put what we call Title 22 water, which is tertiary treated water. That's purple pipe water.
Yeah.
It's got to be advanced treated water to put it into the aquifer.
I got you.
So that's why we have West Basin treating the Hyperion water with advanced treatment, which means reverse osmosis.
Well, thanks again for everything.
Well, thank you very much. We appreciate you coming out here.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Another thing, I have some business cards here with our QR code. If you wanted to pass them around and go to our website. If you don't get a business card, it's wrd.org. And it'll explain what we're doing. And I think you guys have my email address and phone number. If not, it's on the card. So I'm happy to try to answer questions at any time.
Thank you again.
Oh, yes, more water.
Okay.
And thank you for your time.
No, thank you. So we're gonna move on. We're gonna have Robert Machuca, serves as a Deputy Executive Officer for the Complete Streets and Highways Department at Los Angeles County's Metropolitan Transportation Authority, that's Metro. And in this role, he oversees the management of diverse multimodal improvement projects across LA County. Since joining Metro in 2007, Mr. Machuca has collaborated extensively with local jurisdictions, state and federal agencies, and community-based organizations to complete the environmental clearance, final design, and right-of-way acquisitions and construction phases. Mr. Machuca.
Great. Thank you so much for the introduction. Thank you for the invitation as well. And thank you for pronouncing my last name correct. I get all kinds of variations. I really do appreciate it. So thank you so much. Once again, I'm here to talk about 2 very exciting projects that we're undergoing right now. And these 2 projects have really been provided with the direction by the South Bay Cities COG. First of all, I am new to the subregion, so I'm getting myself familiar with a lot of faces and players that are involved with the subregion itself. So my previous person that was leading this effort has moved on, but I'm going to do my best and try to keep the projects up to date. Wanting to make sure I can provide some good information and also some responses if you have questions. So you'll see the generic name that I have on the title for this. That's the next one. The 4 or 5 auxiliary lanes, lane updates. Since I do have 2 projects, one is between the 4 or 5 between Artesia and El Segundo, and then the next one is between Wilmington and Maine. I'll start off with the Artesia, El Segundo. I'll probably refer to it as the 4 or 5 Artesia project. This really doesn't need any introductions. I'm pretty sure you're all very familiar with the 4 or 5 and where the boundaries are with this project. But what I do want to identify are the auxiliary lanes that we're going to be looking into some geometric deficiencies that are currently out there and really increasing them in order to really fix some of the merging issues that we are experiencing out on the highway. So there's a series of 7 different auxiliary lanes along the stretch, and it includes multiple elements of infrastructure that we're looking into improving upon in that area. That also includes ramps, sound walls, bridge widenings, and also is inclusive of the 4 cities that are out in that area with Hawthorne, Lawndale, Redondo Beach, and Torrance. So what's the purpose in the project of this? is really looking at the safety component of the project. We know that congestion is really contributing factors to some of the safety aspects of it, but it's really related to the geometric deficiencies that I mentioned. When anybody's had the experience of trying to get onto a freeway or off the freeway, you either really got to speed up or really slow down in order to merge. And that's why we're seeing a lot of statewide higher rates of incidents and collisions out in this portion of the 405 because of the lack of the correct distance to merge into the freeway or out of the freeway. So we're hoping that with these types of improvements, we can actually improve upon those elements. And then also wanting to make sure, as mentioned, those deficiencies really could add into a contributing factor with the safety of the project. One of the tough things about auxiliary lanes is what is it, right? And that's one of the questions I get asked a lot of, like, why put so much importance into this and really fixing some of these auxiliary lanes that we refer to. As I mentioned, when you don't have enough of a distance to speed up and catch up to the speeds of the flowing traffic on the 405, you're either pressured into merging or having to slow down. And then that causes a lot of side swipes or rear end collisions, which is the predominant type of accident or collision that you see out on this corridor. So that's just what we're trying to do. We're trying to create the sufficient amount of distance that will allow vehicles to merge in and out of the system. We've been very hard at work with regards to this project. We are in the final design phase, but we're also working with regards to the right-of-way certification process. So we've been working with a lot of the folks that are involved with ownership of either utilities or some of the land. One of the big priorities that we do have with our projects is moving forward without having right-of-way impacts. We do have 2 temporary construction easements, and we're dealing with the utility companies out there. But the other permanent fees are within Caltrans. So we're really doing our very best and being able to do away with having actual impacts to the properties out there. As mentioned, we're working through the right-of-way process. We've got our legals and plats getting approved, hazardous materials reports, and everything that's really associated with the environmental clearance, the design, and right-of-way process of the project. The 95% design package was completed and delivered over to Caltrans in the month of July. But the big thing that we've got going on here is the ready to list. That's when we have the package all completed with the right-of-way certification and complete design plans so that we can actually go out to bid for the project itself. So that's what we're anticipating for next summer. So it's very close to getting there. The other good thing is that we also been keeping in contact with the cities along the corridor. It's very tough because you go through an environmental process, you have a very robust engagement process, and then you go into the design phase of a project where all the engineers work in a room and they forget that there's a public to be informed of. And so we really want to make sure that we're really engaged in that process. So we've been meeting with the various cities and getting them involved. Not only with some of the landscaping and noise elements that we want to make sure we're refining and getting the concurrence from the cities, but also having this robust engagement with the local cities as well. We have had recent meetings to talk about aesthetics and landscaping as mentioned, but we're also talking about where the staging areas for the project is going to be and also looking at the traffic management plan. So kind of planning out where the detours are going to be taking place when the construction activities take place. All right, so moving on to the next project. And this is, it's very unique in that we have one corridor and we have 2 projects in very different stages. And through the process of Metro and all our agencies that we've been working with, Caltrans and the South Bay, we've also started to really incorporate various components of our projects to not just look at the highway system and fixing some of the inefficiencies that we see, but also looking at the complete aspect and looking at it from a very holistic perspective. And that really is inclusive of this complete streets element for our various projects. So this project between Wilmington and Maine is also a series of various auxiliary lanes that we want to fix. But is also looking at various arterial improvements along the corridor to really look into how we can fix some of the deficiencies that we're seeing with bus stops or crosswalks or lighting that really encompass the pedestrian and cyclist community. As mentioned, this is almost a 3-mile stretch, but we did start off the environmental process. We had anticipated looking at 5 different auxiliary lanes, and we narrowed that down to 4 to really focus on the highest concentration of those collisions and where we can make the most safety improvements along the corridor. We're also working with the various consultants, and like I mentioned, we did start off the environmental process. And I think one of the biggest points that I want to lead with here today is that we're starting our scoping period, which means that we're going to be engaging the community and really coming out and really providing feedback on the project. So this is where I could really ask for some help from folks here, really disseminating the information that we're going to be starting off the public scoping period next week. And then we're going to be having 2 public meetings, one on the 17th, which is going to be virtually between 12 and 1:30. I can just disseminate some of that information. And then we're actually going to have an in-person meeting at the Carson Center on the 19th between 6 and 8 at night. So we encourage folks to be present and really hear them out, what the folks have to say about the project. We'll make sure to record all the comments. It's going to be part of this legal process with the environmental process, and really making sure that we're addressing all the feedback that we're going to be getting on the project. As mentioned, the purpose and need of the project is really to look into the safety enhancement elements of the system itself, but really looking at also the complete streets, as mentioned, and really try to look into what other mobility elements that we can improve upon the corridor, so that we can have a very holistic perspective with regards to the project.
Can you explain
Please.
what is it on the previous one? What does lack of pedestrians and bicyclists at local interchanges mean? You're talking about it on freeways?
Correct. So that is what we're looking at, and being able to incorporate where can we do some of these improvements. So one of the things that we're doing is with the city of Carson is looking at their bicycle master plan. There are any kind of activities that are taking place with plans that are really consisting of pedestrians and cyclists and ADA compliance. And we're going to be incorporating them into the project and being able to see how we can have a holistic perspective on the project. Now, what's really important about that is that because these projects are not fully funded through construction, we want to be competitive in the process for applying for grants. And when we're looking at state and federal grants, that's what they're looking for as well. So it's going to be advantageous in order for these projects to be inclusive of those components in order to be successful in future phases of the project.
I guess I don't understand.
We've done this one.
Yeah.
If I see a pedestrian on the 405, I call them. What are you thinking of doing? Is this at
Adjacent.
ramps, on ramps? What are you talking
Adjacent arterials or streets. So I'm not talking about just the highway itself,
Yeah.
but I'm talking about our streets along parallel or perpendicular to the 405.
It has nothing to do with them being a freeway reliever, because if you're on a bike, you're not going to be wanting to go on a freeway. So
Yes.
so what's the nexus?
The nexus is really looking at multimodality and being able to be inclusive of those modes in our projects. One of the things that does happen is when there is congestion on a strip of the 405, the first thing that people do, they'll try to get off the 405 and start taking arterials or streets that are parallel to the corridor. So that's having a direct impact on local jurisdictions and cities. So by creating these efficiencies on the freeway, we can relieve some of that congestion on there. But at the same time, because we don't want to just concentrate on the improvements on the 405 and the aux lanes, we're really looking at the very broad perspective of being able to incorporate and look at improvements on bus shelters, sidewalks, really incorporating that multimodality element into our project.
I'll have something to say later.
All right. So as mentioned, we do have identified the multiple alternatives with this project. Of course, we're required to look at a no build and what the system will look like if nothing gets built. But we also are looking at alternative number 2, which is the auxiliary lanes and complete streets component of the project. And also alternative number 3 is only looking at what we call the TSM and TDM pieces of the project. And these are really looking only at the improvements at the local arterials or streets. This is without the aux lanes. So this provides us an opportunity to have a broad perspective of alternatives for the project and looking and evaluating that process. So this is where it's going to be really helpful and commenting and putting in your written comments on the project if there is a preference for one or the other on the alternatives. So this is what the feedback that we're looking for on the project. I just wanted to give a quick little blurb about what are aux lanes and what their intentions are, where they're intended to do. As mentioned, it's really for ingress, egress purposes of vehicles entering and leaving the freeway system. But when they are either too short of a distance or none at all, which is the case for this project as well, that's where it creates these kind of issues of turbulence with traffic and vehicles getting in and out without the proper distance. This is just a depiction of what the alternative no build. This is just keeping the freeway system by itself and not doing any changes to it. And then you'll see the auxiliary lanes depicted on the map right there. We have 2 going northbound and 2 going southbound, and it's really trying to improve upon the ingress and egress issues that we've got on the system. And then the third alternative, as mentioned, these alternatives with regards to looking at the intersections at the arterial level and looking at improving those, and those are highlighted in those bubbles. And that would mainly look at seeing how we can improve upon some of the pedestrian and cyclist improvements on those intersections. This is another depiction of some of the potential improvements that we can maybe include as part of the project. One of the things that we really want to make sure is that there is good and adequate pedestrian facilities, including filling in crosswalks where they're none at this time, or improving upon the lighting element. And the big thing is really looking at the right turns for vehicles. Sometimes these ramps, when you get off onto the street, they have very wide radiuses. So by straightening them up a little bit, it really is forcing the vehicle to kind of slow down and be more vigilant with regards to pedestrians. Bicycle improvements, as mentioned, we're looking at the bicycle master plans and seeing where we can close some of those gaps with the project itself. And up here, we do see a schedule that we're currently in right now. The good thing is that the COG has identified funding for the environmental process and also for the final design of this project. So we're going to be moving forward, but we're looking at this big milestone that we've got going on right now with the project, which is the scoping period. And as I mentioned, for the next 30 days, we're really going to be having the ability to receive that comment and feedback from the public and making sure that we can better address it during the draft environmental document. As mentioned, the current status right now, the environmental review process right now, and then we'll be jumping straight into the design, final design phase of the project. And then eventually, hopefully with the success of some future grants, we can jump straight into construction for the project itself. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you. We'll take questions. Brenda?
Hi, City of Lawndale, Mayor Pro Tem. I had a question because it came up from a couple residents. And are you working within the existing infrastructure? You planning to take some eminent domain, any of that at this point?
Really good question, and I should have been a big point that I should have pointed out my presentation. No, our main priority really right now is working within the system and the right-of-way lines that we have for the project. Our big priority is really not having any displacements specifically for residential homes. There may be temporary construction easements, meaning that there might be some disruption. But we'll work with the neighboring businesses in order to make sure that we're coordinating on those efforts. But we also want to make sure that we're not disrupting any major activities that are out there. So that's a really good point. We will continue in that process. But right now, we just have identified a couple what we call TCEs, the temporary construction easements for now. We're always looking for opportunities to engineer that through and reduce those temporary construction easements. But we will not move forward with projects that have those types of residential impacts.
And I don't know if she was talking about actually a permanent takeover of a private property, say some of the bridges that need to be expanded. They might be encroaching a little bit, too close or, within a certain feet of a commercial building or even a home. Is there plans to possibly have to eminent domain some of those properties?
Yeah, once again, I want to be really clear that we do not intend on having to exercise eminent domain on these projects, and we are not looking at having impacts to residential properties. And when there are commercial properties that we may have to impact, we know that those will be done on a temporary basis through the construction period, and then we revert back to its original state. But that from here on out, we're going to be really focused on that aspect. We really heard this equity focus element and making sure that we're not having that type of an impact on the communities.
And we had some Caltrans projects in Torrance to where we lost gas station to, it didn't have to go to eminent domain, but there's always those things, well, no, we're not going to touch it. But then all of a sudden say, well, it's too close to our property, so it's got to go. And, maybe not in Torrance, but cities like Lawndale, they rely a lot on those few businesses and
Definitely
they're chopping them away.
One thing I could give you some additional assurances with the first project, because we're in the final design, we know we're not going to be impacting permanent properties. We're not going to be impacting. But because we are in the environmental process for the second project for Wilmington, this is where I would really appreciate your actual written feedback in saying, properties are very important to us. Please do not touch them, do not affect them. That becomes part of the legal requirement justification that we have leading into the draft environmental document. It would make it very difficult for us to go against that when we're hearing that from the public. So that's what I'm here for, really trying to encourage that type of feedback and input onto these projects. Please.
Sorry, I have another question, just because you mentioned landscaping, and we have an issue specifically with always break-ins into the landscaping areas to the freeways. Is there any, and I don't know if that's in discussion, it's just, there's always a broken fence, we have to wait, clean it up, and it just starts looking bad, so.
It does. And that's the strong collaboration we've got to continue having with Caltrans and being able to see where they do have ownership of those properties, to get in contact with them and seeing how that can get cleaned up. I know there's also maintenance agreements that get executed with Caltrans and the local city. And then that's something that needs to be really discussed between both parties and really getting that through. But let me know if there's something that I can do.
Well, the chain link's always getting torn through, so I don't know.
Yeah, it kind of goes back to the question, is there a better alternative that would mitigate that potentially, right?
Electric chain link.
But staying within reason, right? See, I had a question, you look at this and you mentioned grants. Are you going after federal funding to support this? Some of that seemed to be ripe for safe streets for all and whatnot.
Correct. That is a big challenge we have with these two projects, and that we don't have the funding available to us for the construction project. Just to provide a very high level understanding of where these projects are. We're looking at 100 million plus with regards to the first project for the Artesia project. And then so we're working with the COG and being able to see how we can identify funds that we can use as a match to get working on some grants and get that funding for the construction. As a matter of fact, right now, I'm working with Caltrans to see if we can partner up together and submit for a Solutions for Congestion Corridors program grants, and seeking some money so that we can actually have the funding in place for the construction phase. Last thing you want to do is work on these projects all the way through design and not have the opportunity to get these projects into construction, and then they just get shelved And then things start expiring with the environmental process, with design guidelines, they start continuously getting updated. So we want to move as soon as possible so that we can get these projects into construction. Appreciate that.
Okay, we're gonna take a couple more questions. Go ahead.
Maybe I missed this, but there's been construction between Artesia and Boulevard and Vermont Avenue on both sides for probably about a year now. Is that, I mean, is that this or that's something totally?
That's something else. Yes, that's another set of projects that Caltrans is currently working on. And those really specifically identified some improvements that they were making to some ramps. And really getting that geometry corrected out there as well. But yeah, this is another set of series of ox lanes that are just insufficient for the safety factors that are needed out there.
Oh, public speakers? Okay, and then I'll.
Yeah, okay. So we do have two public comments. We'll start with Ray and then go to Holly.
We, on this topic, or are we moving away from this?
No, this is the same topic.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Is this not?
Is it, you're speaking on this topic?
I'm speaking on this topic.
Go ahead.
There you go.
I am Ray Holler, Lawndale homeowner, and very interested in the I-405 auxiliary lane project, particularly the northern part, because I travel that way. I've done it for years and years and years, and I continue to do it. So I guess there are hazards there that I think that work could improve. However, I've had a lot of difficulty. Where's the clock? A lot of difficulty trying to get information about this project. I've gotten a lot of resistance from some managers. I don't quite understand it. So back in July 16th of the Planning and Programming Committee, there was one chart. It was part of major projects, and yet there's no information about this project on the Metro website for projects. There are 57 projects there, but this isn't one of them. And what I ended up with digging around, I was able to get one chart with, and thank you very much for coming, with Mr. Machuga's name on it. And it has information that doesn't agree with the two, in particular, the shortfall in funding. And, you just said that the design's 95% finished, still don't see a clock. I don't know how I'm doing. And so there's quite a shortfall, and, that's at least 70%. Secondly, one chart said you'd have the design 95% finished by 2024. You confirmed that today, but another chart says 2025. So maybe that's a different milestone, but it looked like the same to me. So I'm really confused about this project. I've had a really bad time trying to get information about that. And I find that very frustrating that when I'm not asking for new content, I'm just trying to find out what there is. It's clear that a whole bunch of work has been done in this project, but I just sort of got the feeling like it's being hidden. Honestly, I mean, I know that's a harsh word, but that's when I ask, questions, of managers who have relevance to it, then, and I don't get anything back that's credible, then, or tangible. And they said, well, maybe we'll put something on the project thing someday. That's not an accepted thing. So I'm sorry, unloading you on this one here, but you have another a partner here who I think will hopefully hear this. So thank you for coming. It was helpful. I've got to tell you, I mean, I would like to have seen the charts before the meeting, because there's a whole lot in there that I didn't understand, and I don't know where it lives, where anyone could get a hold of it. So I guess I'll just stop there and just say that I hope for better communication on this project and not just this project. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Charles, I'll just respond real quick. Charles, I will get in contact right after this meeting with you. I'm going to give you my personal contact information so that we can get in touch. Because that is not the perception I want to provide here, that we're hiding something. Right?
That seems to be the process.
Yeah. So I want to be as transparent as possible. And that's why I'm even here today, and really want to make sure that we can detail a lot of the project itself. But yes, it's really good feedback. It's giving me an opportunity to go back and really look at what's going on and seeing if we're not having fact sheet, a basic fact sheet on our website about the project. I need to fix that. So that'll be on me and we'll work together to get that fixed.
Thank you. Holly, you're up.
Okay, I'm Holly Osborne. I'm also an engineer and I've got a slide rule that's wooden as my father. Okay, so I have some questions because I have studied the project for the Green Line, if it were to go down Hawthorne Boulevard, and part of it is shown in the right of way. And so, were you aware of that?
No, but I love that. So.
Okay, so am I to assume that you can do your project? I mean, can we still do the metro down Hawthorne Boulevard? Because they told us very specifically, we can live to fight another day, because that is the preferred alternative of Lawndale, Hawthorne, and Redondo. Okay, that's metro. The other thing that you think is locally preferred alternative is the metro preferred alternative. It's not the locally preferred alternative of us. Okay, and so I want to know that you are not, I want to know if you do your project, is that going to preclude our alternative? Because you guys have not been transparent about that, if that's what you think. Because I was very distressed when I saw those drawings, and you apparently don't even know anything about them. And we haven't had feedback, and I don't know if they've been deliberately hiding it from us. Now, and again, you've never been here before, so you.
Oh, I haven't. So here to meet you.
Thank you for welcome. Just to change the subject slightly, I had a difficult time with auxiliary lanes versus new lanes, because I have seen so many statements saying that adding lanes does not reduce traffic long term. In fact, it actually adds to the, I'll just read the statement. According to Metro's own conservative analysis, greenhouse gas emission from Metro freeway capacity expansion will far outstrip all greenhouse gas benefits from Metro transit. I haven't heard you discuss anything like that. You just said, well, they're not really lanes, they're auxiliaries. Well, I have a hard time with that. So anyway, I'm very interested in your drawings, and I want to see how the Hawthorne Boulevard option can still be an option. And so you're gonna get Plains talk from me.
I like it. I welcome it. I really do. As a matter of fact, that's why I really encourage you. I encourage everybody in this room to really attend these public scoping meetings that are coming up. And this is what we want, this type of good, robust feedback and being able to incorporate the various elements into the project itself. But I look forward to hearing from you in the future.
Okay. My name's Holly, by the way.
But we have one last question.
These are, well, first of all, it's not a question. I just want to put our perspective on it. First of all, I want to tell you all that Robert is new to the South Bay, and he has been incredible. He has really opened up a lot of these issues to us and been incredible to work with. So whatever I'm saying has nothing to do with Robert. But what's going on in transportation, and this is a really good example of it, is we have been working on these auxiliary lanes for years as a safety project. They are not a freeway expansion project. They are a safety project. And what's happened in the state of California is that they are now saying that they don't want to do anything on freeways. They want to put all the money into transit, into bike lanes. So what you're hearing is the cost of this project is going to be double. This is why there's no 710 truck lane or any improvements on the 710, because what they've done is they have burdened every freeway project with bike improvements. Now, somebody that's riding a bike is not going to the San Fernando Valley. And so it's to me,
They're not
illogical.
either, but.
So it seems to me that one of the things we should do, and I'm just going to suggest this, is to say that we want the Artesia project, which is the one that they're going after the grant for, but we want the alternative that has freeway improvements, not the TSM improvement, which is building bike lanes to improve the 405, which makes absolutely no sense and will not improve the 405. So I do think a letter of support for that grant is important, but I do want you to know that we have put in money, can't remember how much, about 60 million or something. We have a placeholder for about 60 million in our measure, our projects to help fund this project. And so if they go get a grant, they would backfill. And Robert has said to us, and he will come back, and we're not doing this tonight. And he has said that if we could come up to a 50% match of the project, which might be more than that, then we probably have a better chance of getting the grant. So we might be, so these are some of the regional projects that we might want to consider as we are considering other regional projects, which will come up in a couple of minutes. So, so I just want you to know that. And there's another thing that's coming up, which is, Robert didn't mention it, but equity. Metro is now trying to say that every project has to have equity. Now, I am not going to come out against equity. There's nothing wrong with equity. But when they asked me about the 405 and they wanted me to identify the equity groups, and I said, if you're not taking any right of way, as long as you're not taking any right of way, is that equity group in the San Fernando Valley, or is it in Long Beach, or I mean, how do you pick a group in the 405 that has equity to make a decision on what we should do on an auxiliary lane? And that's what's happening in transportation. So I think it's worth all of us saying something about that. When he comes up with his alternatives on only TDM, and that's a freeway project, I think we need to say something about that. So we might want to bring this up, I think, at the Transportation Committee. But I think tonight, the one thing you might want to do is just say that should they apply for a grant, we would send a letter of support, because this is a very important project. Thank you.
Thank you.
Get off my soapbox.
It's so refreshing.
I'm excited there for a minute.
A lot of the good insights that you have, and this is what's really exciting. Local context has a lot to do with these various projects. I am involved with other projects throughout Los Angeles County, and what the North County does, what the South Bay does, Rio Verdugo, Gateway. I mean, there's very unique circumstances that really dictate how they want to prioritize their funding, how they want to prioritize their list of projects. And it's very evident that it's very clear, but it's something that I do want to encourage to come out and speak on those points, so that we can document them, and it'll be part of our process in evaluating the projects.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
So I think what we're doing tonight is, we're going to, request a motion, we write a letter of support for the project. And, we'll have that taken care of, after the vote. Great.
So moved.
Wait, first, second, oh.
Point of, I guess a question is, are we because I thought there were 3 options, so are we supporting? We don't know which option. Are we just supporting the project, whatever?
This is a letter of support for the match.
grant,
This
for the
is
grant.
Grant.
For a grant.
To help
Projects?
them get their grant.
I think what it is, a letter of support for the 405 Artesia project.
Only the
Further
405.
along, close to construction.
Right.
And then we could pick separately our preferred alternative for the other one. During the scoping period, we can comments in.
Got it, David.
Well,
Good.
but wait a second, I mean, scoping is not the part of the CEQA process where you have the alternatives. Scoping is the part of the process where you define the project purpose and need and what are the environmental impacts that you need to evaluate. So, I mean, let's just be clear on what the process is. I mean, we all have driven the freeway, so during your presentation, you know, I'm sure we all understand when you're trying to get off at Crenshaw coming north on the 405, it's pretty tough because there's people getting onto the freeway from Western or whatever it is. So we get it in terms of the shortness of the auxiliary lanes and all that stuff. So, I mean, I don't have a conceptual objection to supporting investing in straightening out, making safer the stretch of 405 that goes to the South Bay. But we got to be clear about what it is we're supporting and what it means in the process.
So just to be, that's a really good point. We're entering with the Wilmington project. We are starting the scoping period. We're in the environmental process right now. And that scoping period is the period where we're legally required to document all the feedback that we're getting. So based on people writing in, speaking up at the meeting, getting that recorded, It's all gonna be taken in as part and into the development of the draft environmental document. So it's gonna be, that's gonna be, and that's where we'll provide the feedback. What alternative would you like to see in incorporated or developed as part of the project? And then that alternative gets then developed and identified as this preferred alternative towards the end of the final environmental document. And that's the alternative that will be then designed and then eventually constructed. If the funds become available. So yeah, that's the one process that we've got coming up. We're starting the scoping period next week. And we'll have our meetings on the 17th and 19th. And so we've got that process. And then the letter of support is really in the process of us submitting a grant application for the construction funds.
Right, right, but I just think it's worth us being clear that not everybody's suggestion of an alternative actually gets included in the draft EIR. There's a ton of them that get filtered out for good reason, because you can't have 200 alternatives evaluated in the EIR. You're gonna be,
Yeah, so far we have two. We have two built alternatives that we're reviewing, and that's where we're gonna be looking for feedback on. Which of those two or three? Technically, we have three, the no build, saying we're not gonna do anything about it. So those are the three alternatives we have for the project that we're asking for feedback on.
but these are very conceptual level alternatives, because you haven't even done the draft EIR yet, right?
Correct.
Yeah, so, I mean,
And we're not talking about, the letter of support would be for the 405, which is already farther down, and they're going for a grant.
Say that again, Jackie.
Oh, I'm sorry. The letter of support that we're suggesting would be for the 405 grant that they're going for. Just to say that we support a grant, them applying for a grant.
correct. So we're not even at the stage where we're supporting a certain alternative.
No. I think that we should put this on the transportation committee agenda and discuss it further. But that's just to say that we'll support a grant if they go for a grant.
Oh, is that the action then to send it to the transportation committee to come up with something to come back to the board?
Well, I think the action is for the COG to send a letter of support for the 405 project, to fund the 405 project without talking in detail about
Conceptual.
which alternative.
And then refer the rest to the transportation committee.
The rest of it goes to them. We're just voting on supporting the funding.
I'm always supporting funding.
But did you say that was a match funding though? We have to match the grant?
No, we've already put up money for, and we won't add any until we find out we're not guaranteeing that we will supply any more money than what we've already put up. But the project will never get built if they don't get a grant. So we're not adding any more money to what we've already put up.
Can I make a request or make a substitute motion? I'm sharing some of the confusion that Councilmember Lozzie has. What I'd like is to see a staff
You guys sound
report laying out. Like one, is laying out what are the options, what the proposal is. There's no staff report.
Well, that's my other issue is that this seems like an interesting, this seems like an interesting thing to be asking us for as part of a presentation and not an agenda item.
Yeah.
And that also seems like a odd request and an odd spot for this. I'm not really, from a matter of process, you don't have a presentation, then ask for a decision action item.
So I would
that's-
move, and
yeah.
although there already a motion on the table,
It's not seconded, so.
I don't think so.
I would move that we bring this item back with what the options are as an agendized item, so we know what our choices are. Even though it's a conceptual support for going out for a grant, I'd like to have it articulated a little
It
bit.
does say request for support on the agenda, but
On the
no letter.
presentations item.
But it's under presentation. It's not under agenda with the staff report. Yeah, I agree. And I think if I guess I was thinking that support request for support was, oh, do you support safety projects? Well, sure I do. But yeah, I think this lacks a little meat.
I have to agree with that. I would second that
Thank you.
revised motion.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor and a third and a second. David?
And the motion is to bring back a staff recommendation.
With the options.
Any opposition? Any abstentions? Okay, thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you guys.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
While we work as a team. Okay, under 8A, if you'll take a look at that, it's on page 104 and 105.
The only troublemaker.
This is a matter of Jackie's 3% in her contract. And based upon contract that because she's now an employee and not an outside
Contractor.
contract city or contract employee now in our payroll schedule. And under, I think it was attachment 1, there is a clause about a 3%, but it has to be approved by them.
I don't think, I'm not sure it says 3%.
It's just other raise. But 3% is consistent with
Cost of living in the.
cost of living. So it's on page 104.
I'll just offer.
Good. No, go ahead.
3% is what we're giving, the minimum we're giving all our employee groups. Including, we just we set a schedule to raise our city attorney's pay by 3% every year for the next 5 years. Right. 4 years.
So I'll just read the analysis that was written, and it says pursuant to section 3.2, board officers are recommending a 3% increase in her salary from 16,250 to 16,737, effective September 1st of this year. Annual salary will be at 200, and this is an increase that is accounted. It's already been accounted for in our 2004-2005 budget. So the proposed modification to the agreement has been memorialized in the first amendment of the agreement, which is also included. So the recommendation is for the board to approve the first amendment to this executive director's employment agreement and provide 3% salary.
All right, move to approve first amendment.
Second.
Okay, a first and second. Any discussion? David?
Any opposition? Any abstention?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank
Becky,
you.
let's move on.
Okay, next is Kim with South Bay Environmental Services.
So I wanted to announce that we have a location for our Energy and Climate Awards. A lot of you came to that presentation last year that was at the Carson Community Center. And this year it's going to be in the city of Gardena, which we're very excited about. And it's the date, we have a date. It's going to be Wednesday, December 4th. Of course, you'll get an invite much, closer to the event, but you can mark your calendars now. And it's really a wonderful time to celebrate all the work that your staff does. It really is looking at, they achieve these energy efficiencies, they achieve the sustainable actions. And so we just celebrate all their work. So I'm hoping everybody will come.
Like a luncheon day?
Yes, it'll be and last year, I don't know if you remember, we had this beautiful award that was designed by our Civic Spark fellow that they used actually AI to do it. And it was really pretty, like a nice poster. So also I have great news that some of you heard me at the steering committee. We received LA County received the award for the residential direct install grant. It's for all of Southern California, and we'll be able to implement it in the South Bay. The direct install is for disadvantaged communities. And it is, the COG actually was awarded $384 over a 5-year period. And we will be helping residents take advantage of this program. And it's to do things like switch out their gas appliances. It'll also include some energy efficiency as well. So that's very exciting. And we made sure that this includes mobile homes as well as single family and also multifamily. So we're really excited about this project. And then we'll also be working with community-based organizations. And also we received funding to do a full roof study. And this is to look at city facilities and assess what kind of technology, what are the advantages and disadvantages if they wanted to put cool roof onto their facility, what that would cost. And, is it worth it? And so we're excited that it's also going to start. So those are lots of projects coming in. They'll be starting most of these next spring, but we'll be busy. Oh, we do have our new Civic Spark Fellows that will also be starting in September. One will be working on energy efficiency and one will be helping with events as well as some of our communications as we need some extra help. We are out in the field a lot. We do almost 100 events or over 100 events, I should say, a year. So
volunteers, we could use more volunteers.
Yeah, volunteers.
That's it?
Yes.
Okay, I'll go on with homeless. Ronson could not stay this evening. As you know, we have our Good Neighbor Pledge. We've taken that to several cities already. We have 4 cities and Supervisor Mitchell that have signed on to this pledge so far. We would like to ask you all to look at the pledge, agendize it at your city, ask Ronson to come if you'd like him to come, ask us to help your staff with the staff report, and we'll answer any questions in advance. We think it's really, it's a good neighbor pledge. It doesn't really commit you to anything else that you're doing other than being a good neighbor and not dumping in somebody else's territory. So we're working on that. We know a lot of councils are dark in August, so we're hoping that by September, the end of September, we can have practically everybody's on board. Functional zero, we had
Are you moving away from homeless?
no.
Oh, this is,
Homeless.
okay, good, because before you do, I do have some,
Okay.
I want to discuss.
Okay, functional zero, we were having a celebration with Redondo Beach because they have achieved, functional zero, which means that they house as many people as they become homeless. That homeless in and homeless out is pretty much zero. They also are placing people within a very short amount of time, much less than the 90 days. That I think is the standard for functional zero. We were going to schedule a big celebration with the city on September 18th, and that is not working. So we are changing the date. It is, if you wrote it down, take it off your calendar, let you know what the date is. We have previously we've invited the governor and all of our legislators, and so hopefully it will be because this fits right into what everybody wants our cities to do. So we will let you know. Torrance is the first city to sign our time-limited subsidy contract. What that means is it's a reimbursement contract, but it means that if you have somebody in your city that is homeless or about to be homeless, and with a plan, with like a workout plan with their case manager, within a year, if they can get off being homeless, our time-limited subsidy program, us to subsidize them, for example, for up to a year, if they follow their program with their case manager. It's so you voted on that program, but we need cities to sign on, and Torrance is our first city. So we hope that if you want any information about that, please call Ronson, and also the nonprofits can sign on to that program as well. Just a little bit of good news. We did have PATH serving some of our cities, and now we have a WLCAC, which is Watts Labor Community Action Coalition, I think. Watts Labor Action Community. Yeah, okay, WLCAC, right. And they are apparently in Councilman McCosker's district, and my notes say here that they took a half a dozen people off the street already. They just got started, and they're really out there and making a difference. So we're really thrilled about that. I also found out that one of our cities received 2 calls. 2 families, when school started, were homeless, and the children were in a car. And we were able to help them. One family was permanently placed in a Project Home Key situation, and the other family has been temporarily placed, but we're working with them. But as school starts, there are children sleeping in cars, so we want to see if we can take care of that. So with that, I will turn it over to Mayor Mass.
Thank you. Councilman, we're no longer mayor.
Councilman, okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Jackie. What I wanted to just explore, and I've asked the city manager for Hermosa Beach to put the Good Neighbor Pledge on our next city council agenda. I will advocate for it. I think it's good policy. And I'm glad that Tim's here, because I don't know if he can shed light on it, but I've read in the press that both LA and Long Beach are moving forward with clearing out encampments. LA is towing RVs and so on and so forth, for which I do not fault either LA or Long Beach. But what I wanted to ask is whether or not we're getting any reports about changes in our homeless population in the South Bay as a result of what Long Beach and LA are doing, or what any of the other cities in the South Bay are doing, if there's cities who have declined to sign the pledge and have moved forward to enforce their anti-camping ordinances.
I have not heard of any of our regular South Bay cities, but District 11, Tracy Park today cleaned, I guess, out Dockweiler Beach. And so there is some question as to where those people are gonna go. And it just happened today, I guess. So we don't know what that means.
So we,
They were offered.
I was gonna raise the same issue. So I wanted to know if folks have had any experience from, with Long Beach. And actually, there's been a lot of press about how LA is changing its policy, but there's really absolutely no change on the offer of services and bringing folks in. We're not moving a single RV unless a person comes in, a person says they're there. We may have significant changes, but right now what you're experiencing is government by press release. It's really not much different. It's not different at all. We are not changing our policy. I mean, we just cleared 6 RVs on I Street today in Wilmington, but in every single case, people came in for services. We crushed some RVs, we tow RVs, but we are not moving people along. I will tell you what we found out on our I Street operation today. We had 7 relocations from Long Beach.
Oh, gosh.
7. My senior lead officers were meeting this afternoon, going over it, and they were comparing notes. They identified 6 of them. My lead homeless services guy in that operation came across the news who said that he was from Long Beach and he didn't want to come in. So guess what? We don't move his RV. A big failure today on our operation was somebody that came over from Long Beach because they were told go to LA. Called Mayor Bass tonight. We're gonna have to pursue this because we are getting folks pushed out of Long Beach for publicity reasons into LA, and I'm assuming it's gonna happen in Carson too. They're coming basically to the northern end of Wilmington, so they're gonna keep moving. But we're committed to bringing folks in. Well over $1 billion last year on this program. 250 million here that we gave the mayor a blank check for, but we spent $1 billion. We're bringing people in.
Right, and just so I'm clear, Tim, I would not fault the city or any city for acting in a way that it feels serves its constituents. And I will. I just want to air it out for purposes of our discussion because I think it could change the politics of this issue for South Bay cities fairly quickly if the complexion and the stability of our homeless populations begins to change.
I will talk with Ronson about it and we'll monitor this.
This is a gigantic problem.
Yeah, we'll work with you.
Gigantic problem, because this is a dramatic change in policy on one side of the harbor with immediate consequences for my jurisdiction. And I'm gonna figure out how difficult government we can sign a policy. We went through the regular process. By a year and a half from now, we have it signed. We'll sign it. We're not gonna change. I'm not gonna advocate for changing the way we do stuff, but my problem just went up exponentially.
That's your concern, right? That's our concern, right? All of a sudden, it's this somewhat potential migration, right?
Mass migration.
Well, it's a challenge. I mean, that's why I view the good as good policy. I mean, we've absolutely got to work together because from my perspective, if it becomes every city for itself, we're just creating instability and pushing it to each other and back and forth, and that doesn't help anybody. But that's my 2 cents on the whole thing.
I want to be clear, we will tell people based on the action we took the other day that there are some areas where they can't park any kind of vehicle. But with the areas that we've set aside, we still have 11,000 miles of street where people can park. So I'm not pushing people out of Hebron and Alameda. I'm not doing that. We're saying you can't be here, you can be there. But in the meantime, we want them to come in.
Okay.
Thank you. I will definitely follow up with that. Senior services, I don't have anything. Britt, do you have anything on senior services?
Well, our next meeting is going to be end of September, Tuesday, September 24, 9:30 to 11:30. And we're going to be focusing on developing more of a volunteer program spearheaded by the League of Women Voters that's very interested in trying to develop other support system, transportation support systems for seniors. So if that's an interesting topic to you, we'd love to have you join us.
Okay, if I can go into transportation, I just realized there's no metro meeting today, right? So we don't have a metro report, but I do want to say, since Mayor Butts' name is on the agenda.
Kind of blast.
Oh,
Use the microphone.
We can't hear anything.
sorry, okay.
Use the microphone.
Just speak up, yeah.
Oh, okay, well, let me just say, Mayor Butts is, what's happening with I keep getting asked, what's happening with the Inglewood, People Mover request for funds. And what we have heard is, we met with the Inglewood People Mover consultants and the team, and they received one bid for the People Mover construction. They were negotiating with that the party who put in the bid. And we have a meeting September 3rd or 4th, something like that. And they're going to let us know where they are with the bid, but they're planning to come back and ask the COG for more funding, either September or October. What we said to them is, we are not going to make this a fire drill, that we're going to take our time if we're going to be considering this, but we would offer to do a workshop, as we said before. Remember, we were going to have a special workshop. So we are technically, unless somebody can tell me that this date is really a rotten date, we have September 19th as at 6 o'clock at night, our evening meeting, for a workshop, which we will not know if we're going to have until the first week in September, after we meet with the team. The workshop would be at 6 o'clock at night. We would want you to invite your city managers and anybody else on your city that would want to know how this funding mechanism is going to work. As you know, we gave them a legal opinion that their last request for us was not legal. And so they said that they will come back with a request that is going to be within the bounds of that legal opinion, but I have no idea what it's going to be. So, unless it's impossible, please save September 19th, and then we will get back to you as soon as we know.
Jackie, I'm not sure if I can be able to make a workshop, but what I'm interested in is how this ask might impact transportation dollars for the region in our various cities. So I'm wondering to what extent you have capacity to do that analysis, or how we would get that analysis, so that we're not just looking at this request, but we're looking at it in the context of how it's going to affect future disbursements for transportation projects throughout our region. How do we get that information?
When David and I were planning the last workshop, that was going to be part of it. I don't want this workshop to be Inglewood's workshop. I want this to be our workshop. And so Inglewood can present their proposal, but we will discuss it in the context of what it means to the COG. So David has an analysis of the project.
So why a workshop if we're just interested in the data, and we may not have the time for the workshop, at least some of us?
Go
I
ahead.
would say that the workshop is because they have a very complex plan to try and access the funds that they're looking for. That involves either bonding or accelerating of funds, and it gets very complex very fast. And before we just say okay or no, you guys need to understand what it is they're asking and what those future impacts are.
I fear you might have limited attendance, but I defer to you as to how you think.
I guess I'd make the observation, I'm less concerned how their funding may come about or not, or whatever, how they may go approach to get funding. I think back to your point, we want to know what's it going to impact.
Well, yeah, because it's a zero-sum game. So if you do more there, then you've got to take it from somewhere else.
I'm less concerned about how they, their creative ways to get funding. I want to know if it's a zero-sum game. What's that want to do for us? Because at the end of the day, if it's whatever that number is, if I can't go to the citizens of Alameda and say, hey, there's value in doing this, or this is what you're giving up, however you want, whatever that number is, it's going to be a hard sell.
That's exactly what we want to give you. We want to tell you what the ramifications of the request are. It's very hard for me to respond to what you're saying because I haven't heard the request. The last request we talked to a couple of city managers about it. It took us an hour with each city manager to talk about it. It was very complex. And if you can't come to the workshop, we can do it during the day and do it for your staff. But if it comes back, it's not complex, fine. We don't need a workshop, but we can't, I didn't think you'd want to spend an hour out of a meeting talking about this, and you probably want your staff also to be aware of what's going on. So that's why we said, you know, like save September 19th. This could be really simple and we might be able to dispatch with it right away, but we just don't know.
So is the workshop going to be the workshop and the decision, or just the workshop?
No,
for
it will
the?
not be a decision.
Okay, okay. So you can attend if you want, and then
Yeah.
if not, just wait for the.
Right. Oh, but I would encourage each city to have somebody there.
And will they address the potential impact of getting or not getting the federal funding?
We can have them do that, yes.
Because I think that was a big piece of them.
Well, last time Mayor Butts suggested that they were getting were getting the federal funding. I actually did contact, although I have not gotten an answer yet, probably because of the convention, but I contacted Maxine Waters and asked her. She said the money is gone, but said the money is back in, and I would like a clarification. And I haven't gotten that answer.
So, Mr. Chair, just as a matter of process, as I understand it, workshop would be for folks who want to dive deeper into it, assuming it's going to be fairly complex, because our board meetings don't typically allow us to spend 2 hours on one agenda item, exhausting all of our questions.
Right, right. And as I said, and if you cannot come, I hope you'll send somebody. Because it will, I mean, it's going to affect everybody in one way or another. Okay, the other thing I wanted to do is introduce Karen. Karen, you want to get up and tell us?
Hi, everybody. So my name is Karen Swift. I'm in a newly created role at Metro, Deputy Executive Officer for Local Government Relations. I think I'm glad tonight that I am a former and not current congressional staffer, but that's how I got my start back in LA politics, working for Congressman Henry Waxman back in the mid-90s. And then I did Congressman Adam Schiff, and then I went to Metro in 2015. I actually reminded David, I was hired to be the South Bay area manager, and I was in that role for about 3 months. I came out and met with Jackie and other folks, and anyway, and then I moved over fairly quickly to the San Fernando Valley and Las Virgenes, Malibu area. So I spent a lot of time with Jeff over the years, and left Metro for a couple of years, went to Cedar Sinai, did local government relations there, and then came back to Metro last summer. And so I'm in this new role. So we have a federal government relations team, we have a state government relations team, and as I said to David, if you ask somebody who did local government relations at Metro, you get 20 different answers. So now there's a Karen. And so this is what I do. So I'm making my way around. I have a big focus on LA City Hall. So I walk a lot from Gateway over to LA City Hall. I cover the transportation committee there. And then under me now, I have a regional government relations manager. So Andy Seabuck is on my team. So he will be here at the COG meetings, but he's furiously typing. Andy is furiously typing things that normally go to me when I'm somewhere else other than here. So whatever is kind of happening here, it's got me, and we report directly up all the way to our CEO, Stephanie Wiggins. So when you have concerns and issues, you let us know, and we will make sure that they get elevated, escalated. Andy is your point of contact in your cities, with your city managers, for your staff, your issues. You're going to work with Robert. I spent a lot of time with Holly and Ray at Gateway. So when that's what he was talking about, because he knows me pretty well from our Metro board meetings, and I get to see council member a few months ago. So kind of here, there, and everywhere. So anyway, making my way. I was in Lancaster, I think back in June, West Side, Cabrillo Valley, San Gabriel Valley. So Robert and I get to go other places together. And anyways, appreciate the time tonight. And please get my contact. Jackie Ken and these announcement.
Welcome. Thank you. Welcome.
Just my, excuse me, my announcement is just the same as last month. The K-line road extension. The draft EIR is open until September 5th. This is the proposed extension that would go from the Expo Crenshaw, which is a northern termination of the K line. It would go all the way up to Hollywood. There are 3 proposed alternatives. One would go up La Brea, one would go up San Vicente to Fairfax, one would go all the way west, San Vicente to Santa Monica Boulevard. With potential, it's been teased it might go to Hollywood Bowl eventually. So the draft ER is there's some virtual meetings online that you can watch. Comments are due September 5th, like I mentioned. I think this is a really big thing for the South Bay, because when this is fully built out, be able to get on one train down here, not transfer at all, and go all the way up to Hollywood. Go, depending on the alignment, you can go to Cedar Sinai, 6th largest private employer in LA County, and go to the museums, you could go to West Hollywood. So I think this is a really big thing impacting the South Bay when it's eventually built out, and we'd love to have your comments on that.
Any quick questions? Okay.
The next item is General Assembly, but I'm gonna table that if that's okay with you. I think we still have more to discuss. Local Travel Network, I'm just, for those of you that don't know, we're applying for a safety grant, a federal safety grant. We've asked your cities for letters of support. I know which ones have done it, so if you check with me. We've also asked school districts for a letter of support, because what we're gonna do with the safety grant is we are looking at a regional e-bike sticker program for the South Bay. We're we're piloting in the Palos Verdes Peninsula. The Palos Verdes School District is very, very interested in this. And so we want to start there. We're also working with other school districts who are interested in e-bike safety program. And so we would help with that program with cities. We facilitate it with cities and school districts. And then the second thing we would do is have expos or showcases, we're calling them showcases for micromobility to show how to safely use micromobility. So it's a safety grant, and we hope that we're submitting it by the end of this month. You had a question?
Actually, more for Jeff, putting you on the spot. Welcome.
Hi.
There were two pilot program pieces of legislation for allowing cities to issue e-bike licensure and be able to have that ability. One was for San Diego, the other was for Marin. My understanding is the pilot program for Marin, is that moving? The reason why Manhattan Beach is interested is, I think for all of our cities, is if a pilot is allowed in one or two cities, then it stands to reason that we will be able to have pilot programs of our own through the cities, as opposed to relying on our school districts that are already overburdened. And we've gotten mixed responses from our school districts, which are very busy with their own duties. I'm just wondering, would you know off the top of your head? If you don't, I would.
Possibly. I just got a letter from your city supporting one of those bills. I believe that was the San Diego one.
And the reason you got that letter, because I'm on the legislative action, I asked, is because we had supported the San Diego bill.
Yeah.
But the pilot program in San Diego.
No votes for that one. So
my understanding is that one was not moving, and our assembly member, Almer Suchi, at a community forum mentioned he had supported the Marin County one. And when I last looked up the legislative history, that one looks like it's moving through the Senate. So we can.
Did you say the San Diego one is not moving? Because
I believe
the one I got the letter on from you is moving and looks to be like it'll pass.
Let's talk.
Yeah.
But I think it's important to know that cities are limited in their ability to do permitting programs, and that's what this legislation is all about.
No, we would support that, and we actually have school districts that are, we've met with, staff met with somebody, so excited, the school district was really excited about it. And some are gonna be able to have the capacity and some won't, but we want to make the opportunity available and explain how to make it work. We're not an implementer, but we are a facilitator. So we'll work on that.
I think they previously supported those two bills, but when they were statewide, then when they got narrowed, we took them off the matrix.
Right. And the other thing is, we've met with Lawndale, and we're having meetings with Lawndale Subcommittee on route refinement for the local travel network. On the digital equity plan, we are completing it as of next week. I think it will probably come to the board for some kind of a discussion or presentation in October. We're finalizing everything in September. This is just a little anecdote that we were talking to one of our cities about the fiber network, and they use a redundant service besides our fiber network. And the staff member was saying the redundant service was he said, I can get the same price from Time Warner. And we said, well, what were you paying before the fiber network, our South Bay fiber network? And he was paying like $1,000 more a month. So we have disrupted the market. He is paying the same now because we came in with a price that lowered the market. So that we've already achieved something that we're pretty excited about.
We like competition.
Yeah, that's what we did. We set up some competition in our market. So that was great to hear. And we're, so you'll hear more about the fiber network as we move forward. Recent grants, unfortunately, we did not get the PVP wildlife prevention grant. So we heard that this week.
Wildfire.
Wildfire, what did I say? Wildlife? Oh, it's Wildfire, sorry.
Get that one either.
Like what wildlife?
Okay, and then Jeff is sitting at the table for some reason, so.
Go ahead, Jeff. Jeff, it's all yours.
I just wanted to provide a little bit of an update. I was looking at the legislative matrix that you all approved on the consent calendar. I just wanted to update a few things on AB 1886, since we only have 9 days left of the legislative session. AB 1886, the Alvarez bill related to housing, that bill is on the floor and will be taken up any day now. This one is definitely something we should be opposing. I know Assemblymember Miritsuchi and Ben Allen typically do follow along with our cities and get our recommendations on these, but it would be always good to call them, reassure them, thank them for their votes, assuming they're going to vote with us. But we certainly want to do that. This is the one that takes away your ability to, or requires your housing element to, basically it becomes, builder's remedy becomes automatically imposable once your housing element is no longer, it becomes late. And it also takes away your ability to seek a court. So HCD becomes the final arbiter of your housing element. You don't get to go to a court any longer. Piece of good news, another housing bill, AB 2560, density bonus law, the one that was going to bring the density bonus to the coastal zone and give coastal commission a foothold back in housing policy. That died in appropriations last week. So we are very happy about that. A Wiener bill, the SB 3937. This one is on the floor. This impacts your ability to collect impact fees and other things on development. So we are seeking we are opposed unless amended. The COG's position is straight up opposed. So certainly some calls to that one as well. And then I thought, not on your matrix, but you may have heard about SB 610, another Wiener bill related to the fire maps. That one was getting very complicated. We had originally sort of said, hold off on opposing it. Thankfully, that got held in appropriations last week as well. So that is dead for the year. We'll continue to monitor that. Just mentioning also the countywide ballot measures. Well, we have measures G, E, and A that will be on the ballot countywide. A obviously is your measure H 2.0. G is the governance proposal put on the ballot by the Board of Supervisors that expands their board to 9 and does an elected CEO position. One note on that, the elected CEO would not have term limits because term limits are governed by state law and you can't have a term limit on a countywide office. Just a little bit of information there. And then E is the parcel tax that would go toward firefighting district in County of LA. So the LA County Division decided not to take any of these three up this month, next week on our Wednesday meeting, because at the time we put our agenda together, the registrar had not really confirmed what was going to be on the ballot even. And we wanted to give the campaigns a time to actually ramp up and see if there would be some opposition to these, formal opposition to these. So we'll be taking them up in late September instead. And then finally, at our annual conference here in October, we do have one resolution that qualified by the Saturday deadline. We're going to be putting out a resolution packet to your cities next week. Just please remember, you do have to agendize a council meeting in order to pick a voting delegate to be part of, to take part in the resolution process. So just wanted to make mention of all those things, but happy to take questions or we can talk afterward.
Any questions for Jeff?
Thank you all.
He always does a good job. Okay, let's see, that was others. Any upcoming events or announcements for anybody other than Guardians having a jazz festival this weekend? Another event. Anything else? Anybody?
Oh, there's, yes, I meant to mention this earlier. Saturday, El Segundo is having an art walk.
Okay.
And at the art walk, we're gonna have at the E-Ride, one of the companies is E-Ride, which is a bike company. And we're having an exhibit there with them and in the micromobility and safety. And if you take a picture of the turtle or at the event, then you can get a free tune-up on your bike.
Oh, boy. There you go. Okay. Anything else for the good of the order? Being done, adjourned.
Wow.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Notice you took time off of the agenda.
I did.